Okay, let's get to it. We are just under now 3 hours and counting to that deadline for the Trump administration to submit documents to the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals to justify President Trump's executive order on the travel ban. Remember, another judge had said, stop, you can't do it. And now it's the department from, of course, Donald Trump's team that has to present at 6 p.m. Eastern. Now, that's 2 hours and 56 minutes away, why it should be overturned and get back into action. Something far more powerful than a ticking clock might be about to hit that new administration square in the forehead, a Supreme Court showdown. That's what my next guest thinks. Former White House liaison for the State Department and former deputy senior advisor to the president for Mideast policy, Ambassador Marc Ginsberg. Okay, Ambassador, really? Going all the way to the Supreme Court? How fast does that kind of thing happen?
Well, it's on a fast track to go nowhere because let's be very honest about this. Different circuits around the country, different federal circuits, not putting my lawyer's hat on, will have had different interpretations and opinions about the president's restrictions on refugee admission. Because not only this has affected green card holders, but also certified and vetted refugees. The consequences judicially suggest that where there's disagreements between the federal circuits, the Supreme Court most likely will weigh in, particularly if the Ninth Circuit refuses to honor the Trump administration's appeal. At that point in time, the Trump administration may very well seek a ruling from the Supreme Court. But that, of course, will be long after the so-called period by which this bar was supposed to stay in effect will have expired.
Okay, the judges to rule on the Trump case, and we've just gotten these names. I want people to know, and this is the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. You need 3 of them. Judge William Canby, Jr., Judge Richard Clifton, and Judge Michelle Friedland. What's interesting when you talk about these judges is that the Seattle U.S. District Court judge, who originally put a stop to some of what Donald Trump's administration was trying to do to keep the immigrants from 7 mostly Muslim countries out, was Judge James Robart, put in by George Bush, a Republican. He, of course, was called a so-called judge in a somewhat of a shocking tweet to some people when Donald Trump called him a so-called judge after that because he didn't like what he did. It's a lot of name-calling, but it does appear that this entire executive order is being questioned and having been rushed. Where do you stand on it? Did they rush to push out the executive order from the Trump side?
There's no doubt that this was rushed. There's no doubt that the agencies have failed to have enough understanding. The airlines didn't know what to do. We have customs officials at airports around the world that are supposed to screen passengers as well as let passengers through. This is part of what we call advanced screening. They didn't know what to do. So the calamity, because of this rushed job, resulted in the types of consequences that we've seen on TV. Look, I worked on the Refugee Subcommittee of the U.S. Senate for many years. Barring, of course, the constitutionality of this ruling, the real problem here is that the president is trying to accomplish a goal that in the end his methodology I don't think is going to accomplish. Why? Because the threat of terrorism occurs really from 2 major venues. One is lone wolves that are radicalized online in the United States. And secondly, if I may add, those dual citizens in a country like Britain where there are what we call visa waiver programs, that is, most European Union citizens are permitted to travel to the United States without a visa. But if they're dual nationals, and for example, a young Brit traveled to Pakistan.
Right. So let me jump in here. That's what you're calling the loose link in the immigration fence. So to be fair and balanced here, Donald Trump is correct in at least looking at certain loose links or chinks in the armor where people could come in and do harm here in the United States.
Yeah, that's why I've said the real problem is not the refugees, particularly Syrian refugees who have been vetted for over 1.5 years, believe it or not. But that's true. I'm not saying believe it or not, it's true. But it's the visa waiver program dual nationals that are the real concern that I would have. They don't fall under the category of refugees or green card holders, most likely.
Not at all. They're a little bit of a Trojan horse. Let me then finally ask you this. Speaking of a big rush, do you think that the State Department of Donald Trump's administration will make this deadline, which is now 2 hours and about 50 minutes away?
Yes, I think they will, because the Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit is clearly going to want to issue either upholding Justice Robart's decision, or if they reverse it, then the question is whether or not in the end that causes another degree of calamity, because all of those people who are trying to make it in will be stopped again at the airports. So this is a real-life consequence decision that will affect hundreds of thousands of people based on what will happen this afternoon in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Great to have you, Ambassador Marc Ginsberg. And we call you ambassador because you were ambassador to Morocco. Of course, certainly a country that has its share of Muslims, and it'll be interesting to see what Rex Tillerson, the new Secretary of State, who has called Islam a beautiful religion. I'm telling you, this is it's very malleable at this point. I'm sure you would agree. Nothing is solid at this point. Thank you. Good to see you, Ambassador.
Sure. Good to be with you. Thank you for having me.
And folks, make no mistake, as you look at what's going on the screen here, it's not that the S&P is plummeting so much. It's down 6 points, and the Dow is down 25 points. But there is this uncertainty, it's the U word again, that is concerning people at the moment. You even have Goldman Sachs saying we're flashing some yellow economic lights because any kind of restriction on immigration or trade may cause the markets to just take a pause at the moment. Perhaps that's what we're seeing right now.